Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Josh Groban. I won't give up till I watch 1,200 movies. I won't give up till I watch 1,200 films. But I get sleepy when I watch long-ass movies like Blade Runner. I won't give up till that record belongs to me. Alright, special thanks to Josh Groban for pitching in. As I've always said, it takes a village. But yes, I am Chuck Love, and welcome to the 1,200 Films Podcast. On my quest, my journey, my adventure, my excursion to watch 1,200 films and review every one of them right here on YouTube. Let's get going. Number 176, Maybe Baby. This was a complete garbage, bottom barrel comedy. There was nothing funny in it. Hugh Laurie from House fame stars in this film about he's a script writer, okay, and his wife is trying to get pregnant and they can't, so he decides to write a comedy script about it, and the wife doesn't want him to, but he does it anyways, and she gets mad, and then he spends the rest of the film making it up to her. Yes. Complete poo. 177, Big Game. I think this film was aimed towards kids, but it was a little intense, and I think it's PG-13. Samuel L. Jackson plays the president, and he crashes in the forest, and this little 13-year-old kid crashes in Poland, and this little kid has to protect him because there's terrorists trying to shoot the president and hunt him down, and yeah, it's like an 80s movie, but current. But it wasn't that horrible. For what it was fine. 178, Finding Dory. Another DreamWorks, Pixar, whatever. Ellen DeGeneres stars as Dory, who can't remember anything. This was fine. I got through it fine. The octopus was really the only character I really liked a lot. Other than that, it was just typical standard DreamWorks stuff with standard adventures. Sigourney Weaver as the voice of that one factory was kind of funny. But other than that, it was just another entry. 179, Kubo and the Two Strings. This was another animation. We had an animation nomination day, apparently. Kubo, who lives with his mother, is set in Asia, centuries ago, I believe, and Kubo can do all these little tricks with paper and stuff, and all these magic tricks, and then his mom dies because the ants are evil spirits and they killed her. Then apparently Kubo's grandpa's really, really bad, so Kubo and this small troop go after the grandpa. It's okay. 180, The Perfect Host. This is on Netflix. David Hyde Pierce from Frasier fame. This criminal, this bank robber or whatever, needs desperate, so he knocks on people's doors trying to work his way in and go undercover while the cops are hunting him down, and he knocks on David Hyde Pierce's door, and David Hyde Pierce welcomes him in, and then eventually he goes bad, but then David Hyde Pierce turns out to be crazier than the criminal he let in. So he ties him up and he says, we're going to have a dinner party, and apparently everyone at the dinner party is imaginary. And the object of the guy all tied up is to torture him throughout the night. So, yep, that was interesting. 181, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Finally, I can say this is a very good entry in the Harry Potter series. It's just been kind of plugging along. This one actually finally got to see Voldemort, a real villain. Got to see some action, some intensity, not just bippity-doo, bippity-bop, and then it's over. And the kid from Twilight, Robert Pattinson, popped up and was abruptly murdered, which is fine, which is okay. So, yep, I'm looking more forward to the rest of them. 182, Valerian and the City of 1,000 Planets. This was a complete box office bomb, but this movie actually is not that bad. It is a good science fiction. It's kind of Star Wars-ish with a little dash of Avatar, I guess, maybe. Yeah, a good adventure, good character development. I think the only actor I really recognized was Ethan Hawke, and he was fine. But yeah, it's worth reviewing. I probably should describe some of the plot. Okay, there's two young people, not related, this guy and this gal, and they end up hooking up. And they're these agents, and something's going on. They have to go undercover and get this mineral from this planet that's extinct, and everyone wants a piece of that extinct piece for whatever reason. More or less, that's what it's, yeah. 183, Baby Driver. I wanted so bad to hate this, but I couldn't, because it's really good. The Zoom Zoom Go Fast movies sometimes are good. I consider this a very stylish action fare. The scene in the laundromat was a little nauseating. But other than that, the character development was all good. The action was excellent. Can't find much wrong with it, really. 184, Wonder Woman. This movie was a little long. Chris Pine, during the war, World War II, stumbles upon Wonder Woman's little mysterious magical island and recruits her to help fight in the war. Yep. And that's about what happens. It was okay. As I made clear, I'm tired of action hero movies, but hey, they're movies and I gotta watch them. And it was okay, I guess. I got through it. 185, The Dark Tower. Are you telling me 6 Stephen King novels were condensed into one 90-minute movie? It's a joke. Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey starred, and they did fine. But I haven't read all the Dark Tower movies, and I read the first one, and it's one of the best books I've ever read. It should have been a standalone film, and then you see how that does, and then you go from there. If it does well, you make the rest of the book series and the movies, and if it doesn't, then you let the Sci-Fi Channel make them into cheaper movies. But yeah, I thought it was a kind of a tragedy. All those books squeezed into one abrupt movie. But as a standalone movie, it was okay. 186. This was the first of 10 movies I watched in one day. Tied my personal best. The first movie I watched was 186, Captain Underpants. This was a pure kiddie movie. Nothing at all to offer for adults. It's bad when some of the gags are ripped off from the movie Suburban Commando. It's pretty sad when you have to rip off Hulk Hogan movies. But yeah, 2 of the gags right in a row are ripped off right out of Hulk Hogan films. But it's, yeah, not a good movie. 187, When a Monster Calls. Another movie for kids, even though it was PG-13 and a little intense. This giant monster would come out of the ground and visit this kid whose mom's dying of cancer, and he would tell him different stories that were supposed to, I guess, make him feel better. But overall, it was fine. 188, American Assassins. This was a good action movie. Good grief. There's no lulls. There's no dull spots. There's none of that. It's all bam, 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 shoot, 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 bam, bam. And it's good to see Michael Keaton again. He looks like he's in better shape than he was when he did Batman back in 1989. But the kid Michael Keaton was training, I don't think ever once listened to Michael Keaton. Every time he was given an order, he ended up breaking it. Every time. But, 189, Space Station 76. This was a comedy, I guess. Had a couple funny parts. Jerry O'Connell, Patrick Wilson, Liv Tyler. They're all hanging out in this space station. It looks like it was built in the 70s because everything is designed like it was in the 70s. There's Viewmasters and there's lava lamps and it looked very 70s-ish, and they're all dealing with their own little story. But it's nothing special, though. 190. This was an excellent movie that I had been waiting years to finally work my way up my Netflix list, and I finally did, and I watched it, and it was amazing. Number 190, Mississippi Grind. Ryan Reynolds and the other actor I should know, but I don't. I think he was the actor in the Hobbit prequels, whatever his name was, the main guy. But yeah, him and Ryan Reynolds went on this. The one guy couldn't win unless Ryan Reynolds was around, so they decided to go on a little trip together down the Mississippi to go gambling and win enough money so they could pay off all their debts. And they had their highs and their lows, and et cetera, and they have their adventures along the way, and it's a really good movie. I highly recommend. 191, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I'm starting to realize this movie has turned into a cast of thousands, as there are 1,000 characters, and I was thinking it's time to start unloading some of these characters. It's time to start killing some of them off. And they did. They did. But, we'll see if the next one is better than that one. I thought it was just another okay entry. I still think Goblet of Fire is the better of the ones that I've seen. 192, The Bridgewater Triangle. This was a small-scale documentary about a bunch of paranormal activity that happens in this little triangle in the Massachusetts, Rhode Island area, where there's Bigfoot sightings and UFO sightings and all kinds of weird things going on. And I think it has to do with it being a Native American burial area, and some of the stories that were recapped were really intense and scary. Some of it was just kind of but overall it was not bad. If you're into that stuff, I'd check it out. 193, Take Me to the River. This California family, this mom, dad, and the teenage son, go all the way to Nebraska to have a family reunion, and they're kind of like a fish out of water, especially the teenage boy. And he's playing with one of the younger girls in the barn or something, and she happens to have her, she happens to get a visit from Aunt Flo, and runs home bleeding, and they think the boy did something to her. Then they find out it didn't, but then things get even weirder from there, because they go to the little river to swim, and yeah, it gets intense without getting too intense, and then it just kind of ends, but not a bad film. Strange though. 194, Carnage Park, based on a true story. Apparently there was this guy who owned tons of acres out in the desert somewhere, and if you happen to stumble upon his territory, he would murder you. Point blank, just kill you. And then his brother was a cop, so he kind of let him get away with it, I guess. Then it kind of picks up with this two guys. They kidnap a woman as they're doing a bank robbery, and one of the guys gets shot, dies, and then the guy that owns all the land, the killer, he ends up killing the other guy. Then the woman that was held hostage is running away the rest of the film. But yeah, that's an interesting story that I did not know anything about. Carnage Park, not bad. 195, this was the last of the 10 movies I watched in one day. The Pack. Nothing much to it, basically a bunch of feral wild dogs attack this little countryside home, and the family has to fight for survival. I don't know what else to say about this. It gets very violent at sometimes, when the dogs are biting their necks out. But other than that, it's just basically Cujo, but more. 196. Another dog movie. I have to tell a true story of something that happened recently here. Recently, in my front yard, there's this wire that goes up to this telephone pole to help hold it up. It goes right in the middle of my yard. But, not my yard. I guess it's a duplex that I rent. And, and someone decided that they chain up their dog to that wire and just leave him. Because apparently they were having dog fights in the area, and the dog was all beat up and bleeding and was probably going to die. And they just tied him up to the wire and left him there. And so the guy that lives downstairs below me saw this and gave the dog some food and put out a blanket for him. And then another neighbor took it to the vet and is currently caring for it. But it was just left there to die after dog fighting. Yeah. That's what brings me to this. That's what makes me think of this movie. 196, Bullet Head. It is Antonio Banderas runs this illegal dog fighting ring, and one of the main champions, the big killer dogs, is left behind in this old abandoned warehouse, and then this group of bank robbers kind of go in there for sanctuary to hide from the cops, and then they got this dog coming after them. And basically, yeah, it's Adrian Browning, John Malkovich, and Rory Culkin, the younger brother of Macaulay Culkin, play the bank robbers. And then Antonio Banderas shows up, and yada, 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 goes from there. But, yeah, interesting film. On Netflix right now. 197, a movie I found on the Roku channel. Hugo. This was an interesting kind of family film. This kid that basically lives inside giant clocks befriends this girl, and she gets him going on movies and stuff and books, and then it turns out Ben Kingsley, who runs the toy store, is a famous movie star. And so they befriend him, and yada, yada, yada. It's Sacha Baron Cohen, Borat, played the little security guard, I thought, or the Mr. Inspector, as they called him. I thought he was funny. But yet, not a bad little movie for a family film. 198. I cannot read my own rating. 198 is Nails. Nails is currently on Netflix. This woman gets banged up by a car in an accident, and she's in the hospital, and it's a cheap old rundown hospital, and apparently some things happened in that hospital back in the 80s. And she apparently claims that she's being haunted, and no one believes her, and she puts up all these cameras and doesn't catch nothing, but she still swears up and down that she's being spooked by this creature that comes out of the supply room. But yep, not a bad little horror film. Worth watching if you're into that. Number 199, Citizen X. Stephen Ray and Donald Sutherland. This excellent little 90s movie about the true story based on a serial killer in Russia during the 80s. And Stephen Ray was just he's a forensics guy, and they put him in charge of the operation, and he has to track down Russia's worst ever serial killer. kind of reminded me of Child 44 with Tom Hardy and Gary Oldman, which came out recently. But that was, I think, Child 44, I think, was set during the War of World War II, and this is a bit more recent. But, yep, Donald Sutherland, good as always. Very good film. Number 200, this was something. Salt and Fire, Michael Shannon, directed by Werner Herzog. If you don't know who Werner Herzog is, then what's wrong with you? He's done a billion great documentaries and does occasionally actual films, and this is one of his films. It's these three scientists sent from the United Nations are sent to investigate this something or other, and Michael Shannon runs this terrorist group, and they're like positive terrorists, like they're fighting for the land, and they think the government's going to come in and ruin all of the landscape, and so they leave the woman of the three scientists. They leave her out in this salt flats area with two blind children with enough supplies to get by for a week, and just kind of leave her out there, and she has to survive. And yeah, a little strange, a little unusual. But yeah, that's it for this batch. A lot of good movies. A lot of really good movies. Nothing really great, though. But, and what's upcoming in the next batch, finally, I take the Medea plunge. Boo! A Medea Halloween is currently on its way to my house as we speak. It should be here shortly. Can't wait to discuss that film. Wonder will finally be here. I thought it would be here last time, but it wasn't. It's delayed, but it is on the way. And then the Hercules movie starring The Rock, I'll review that. So we got that to look forward to, and that's about it. I'll see you whenever.